Welcome to Wealthing Talks. I am your host, Alicia Castillo Holley, bringing you real-life conversations from Silicon Valley or somewhere around the world. We will talk about disruptors, angel investments, venture capital, and of course, family offices. Join me along with my children, their families, friends, disruptors, and investors as we explore the fascinating world of creating wealth in a completely different and authentic way. Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthing podcast. I am so excited to be here with Christina Qi. She is the founder of Databento, and it's a company that we invested in, and I really, really enjoyed all my interactions with her. You should follow her on LinkedIn and check what Databento is doing. So Christina, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Alicia.
So let's start with, how did you get here? How did you get to do what you're doing now?
Oh man, I don't even know where to begin. For me, I guess, I guess first, maybe if it's okay with you, I'll start from back in school.
Sure.
So to give you a sense, I'm 33 years old, so I'm a little bit, maybe, I don't know how old or young compared to you.
I'm 63. Okay.
Okay. So I'm a little younger than you. But when I was in school, I feel like there's two types of students. There's the students who know what they've wanted to do since they were 5 years old. I've wanted to be, I don't know, a doctor since I was 4, or a data scientist since I was 5. I don't know. I don't know if data science existed back then. But for me, I was the other type of student. I was the one that was like, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I had no idea. I was like, I would just wanted to watch SpongeBob and play with crayons and just be a child and live my life, and so when I was in school and in college, I took a bunch of classes and ended up finding out, I really liked taking classes in finance. And so I took some classes in finance, and then I ended up interning in some, classes on Wall Street, in some internships here and there in finance, and eventually made my way into, found trading, and then eventually did, some quantitative trading related stuff, and then realized that I like being in the quantitative trading field in general. And then that's how I ended up, starting my first company, which was a hedge fund. Started that company, ran it. I went through the whole life cycle, actually. So I started it, ran it, and I shut it down in the span of a decade. And then I started Databento, and that's my current company here, which is the company you invested in. And so now I'm running Databento, second-time founder, learned all the lessons the first time around. And it's been a journey and such a blast to be able to do this. And to make a difference in the world, to be working on a data product, which I'm super excited about. To continue this entrepreneurial journey as well. So I definitely didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur ever, but it kind of just fell into place, and definitely came about just from, exploring different career paths, from exploring different majors in college as well. I tried different majors for sure, different classes, and just seeing where I ended up.
Thank you. So have you ever worked for a big company, or did you do internships or no?
I did. So I've never worked for full-time for a major company before, but I have interned for 3 major banks. So you probably recognize big names like Goldman Sachs and UBS, very, very big banks. So I did do very big internships, and those gave me the definitely some experiences here and there, not enough to, have enough confidence to do stuff, but at least enough to be able to say, okay, here's what I don't want to do in my career, and here's what I, maybe want to do in this direction, right? So it gave me a little bit of sense of where I wanted to go and where I didn't want to go. Definitely those were really amazing experiences overall. So those are helpful. And then what's interesting is definitely people always ask, when a lot of people ask me as an entrepreneur, they're like, hey, when I start a company, right, as an entrepreneur, should I start a company now today when I'm young, or should I start a company after I get, let's say, 20 years of experience working in the industry, right? And my answer was always just start it, when you feel like it, right? It doesn't matter whether you're 60 years old or whether you're 20 years old, right? It's whenever you want to is the right time. And what I mean by that is like whether you're young or old, whether, you know, and whatever that definition is, it's subjective as well. But like what I mean by that is I guess like I for me, you know, what I learned in a work environment doesn't necessarily translate into working in a company sometimes. But also some of the experiences you learn in a work environment help you too, by the way. So meaning those experiences may help you come up with problems, right? The problems you face in a traditional work environment, you can also come up with solutions to those problems. And so sometimes having that real world experience can help a lot in terms of coming up with a problem to face and solve, you know, for your startup, for your next idea, right? So either way, like it's up to you. And I think the biggest thing for me on when to start a company is just, does it wake you up in the morning? Can you come up with an idea that's solving a real world problem? And also, can you work on this idea and, you know, and will it wake you up in the morning? And are you willing to drop everything and do this? And, you know, and really work on it, you know? So I think that's for me, the biggest thing was that I was willing to put passion into it and really work on it. And like knowing the statistics as well. Statistically, look, the startup success rate is really small, right? I think less than 10% of startups succeed down the road, but knowing the statistics, are you still willing to do this? Are you still willing to drop everything and work on this and take that huge risk in your life? And if the answer is still yes, and plus suffer the judgment of all of your peers and the public, right? Random people are going to judge you. And if you're okay with that, then, and also, you know, you have to put yourself out there. It can be scary to, for me, the scary part was I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm actually fairly introverted. I don't know, Alicia, if you know that I'm actually a very introverted person, but I have to post on LinkedIn. I have to, you know, I view that as a part of my job description. I have to be loud on social media because that's how we do our sales. Actually, a lot of our biggest customers find us through social media. You know, that's how we find our customers. And so that's a part of our job is to, you know, to do sales, to do marketing, and to put ourselves out there for the public to see. So are you okay with doing that? You know, and so those are the questions I would ask as a founder is like, you know, can you not only build, but can you sell, you know, and are you okay with doing those as an early stage founder? And if you are, then absolutely, you know, I would say go for it so long as it gives you energy during the day.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I'm also an introvert and I was a scientist. So I'm very happy at a lab in my garden. And yeah, you have to sort of step up and say, okay, this is something that I need to do. And if you're passionate about something, you go ahead and that's part of what you do. I always say that you don't find the opportunity. I think the opportunity finds you and says, hey, I'm here. And so I say, okay, yeah. and then you go and you act upon it. But a lot of our listeners have no clue what is it that Databento does, how it helps. I will add my edge of why I invested. You is the main reason, but there's other things that I found about Databento that I was fascinated by. And I don't know if you know this, but I grew up in Venezuela and my parents are socialist. And so we never talked about money. So a lot of people around the world are not familiar with the public market, the stock market. They have no clue how it works. And maybe you can say, hey, this is what we do. And this is why we do this. This is how I came about to the solution because yes, a lot of people have no clue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And likewise too, you know, for me, I just grew up in an immigrant family that, honestly, my parents immigrated to America, you know, with $50 in their pocket. So money was just never, you know, a topic. Entrepreneurship was out of the question for them. For them, it was about just survival and making sure that I could have a life here in America and that we could, you know, survive here. Right. And so for me, I'm very fortunate to be able to start a company and to be able to do this and work in this financial industry is really awesome. To be able to talk about money and to talk about these topics, I think is really cool. So to everyone here listening, so Databento, we are what's called a financial market data provider. We provide data via API to a variety of different financial firms as well as fintech firms. So a common example, if you pull up a stock price on your phone, on some apps on your phone that you might use today, that data, depending on which app you use, that data might come from Databento actually.
Wow.
So yeah, that's where your data might come from. So basically we are the data backbone of a lot of fintech apps, as well as financial, some banks and other kind of financial firms out there. They might get their data from us today. So that's what we do in a nutshell. Think of us as we don't maybe sometimes we don't directly compete against Bloomberg. We're not providing like a terminal, like a computer screen terminal to look at. We're transitioning into a new era where people are looking at their phones, right? You're looking at data through what's called API. It's fed to you through like a unique app that someone's building, right? So that's kind of the era that we're building for, is the API era, rather than like our own terminal product. So that's kind of the difference between us and like a traditional Bloomberg terminal. We sell to a lot of Bloomberg competitors. So we sell to other Bloomberg terminal systems that are competing against Bloomberg, but they'll implement our data and then they'll build charts and graphs on top of our data. But yeah, so think of us as one step upstream from all of that. But that's what we do in a nutshell, is we provide data, for the financial world.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons why I invested in the company, I was, excuse me, so in love with it, is that for the majority of people, access to raw data or to good data is impossible. It's very expensive. It's not impossible, it's just very expensive. And you need a terminal that is expensive. You need to do a lot of things. So you just allow people to go and play with financial data so they can understand the market. So without probably having that, the educational component as a goal, you're educating people and you're letting people learn themselves. So I think that Databento is absolutely fantastic. So it's very, very excited about what you're building. But you also do other things that I think are really interesting. You have an entrepreneur dinner or something like that, or meeting every now and then. And I used to do that. I do that for investors too. At my house, we have dinners for investors. And I like to cook and I like to grow my own food. So it's a lot of fun. We go to the garden and I make the pizza dough and we go to the garden, we pick things, and very convivial. But you also do that. Why do you do entrepreneurs? I don't know how you call it, events, small party.
I call it a founder's therapy. And yeah, it's exactly what it is, we invite founders, maybe about 20 founders into usually just to my house now here in Utah. And back when I lived in Boston, we would host it on a university campus in a classroom, because apartments are too small in Boston. But we would usually, sit in a circle, pass around pizza and cookies and ice cream. And then, we would just let it all out. And, people would cry. I mean, people talking about sometimes founders are in loss. I'm being sued by my customers. I'm being sued by my co-founder. So lots of co-founders splitting apart, or board members not getting along, or customers all kinds of problems. Oh, my HR issues, or the list of problems goes on and on and on, right? And sometimes it can be very lonely as a founder. These problems maybe your friends might not understand. Maybe your husband or your wife, you're definitely your kids. You might not want to talk about that with your family. So it can be very lonely and it can be difficult. And sometimes only with a circle of founders, can you open up about that. And so it can be really nice to just, have a circle of people where you can truly trust and open up about, and have a safe space to talk about, and also share resources. It's a nice place to share, what are some books that you've read that are great? What are some common tools and kind of tricks and trades that you've learned, right? What are some great, maybe local lawyers that you've used, or local accountants, and, stuff like that too. That can be very helpful. So yeah, we'll talk about everything and more. So that's, and by the way, that idea, founders therapy, doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone. So for anyone out there who wants to do it locally, you are more than welcome. Take that idea, do it yourself, go run with that idea, because it's definitely, again, it's not like a trademark or patent. It really is something that I encourage everyone to do for yourselves. Like, and it's just like such a fun and easy idea. So yeah.
That is fantastic. I loved it. When I lived, I lived in many countries, and when I lived in Chile and I didn't know anybody there, I used to have the first Tuesday of each month, I used to have a lunch with people to discuss ideas. Entrepreneurship was not very popular in Chile when I lived there in the 90s. And that was a way that I kept my sanity. And especially because I was an immigrant, it's like, how do you do that? And like, no, that's not the way it works. When they tell you they really, really like something, it means it's okay. Whereas in Venezuela, where I grew up, people are much more expressive. I mean, you can't live in Venezuela as an introvert. They won't let you. They won't let you. And Chile is completely opposite culturally, and I didn't understand that. So having that tribe where you can trust people is great. And for the people that are listening here, having these founders therapy groups, I think it's fantastic with no strings attached. It's just go to share. That's one of the things that I saw that you were doing that I thought, oh, this is fantastic.
It's such a great way to meet just, new community, people who, right, if you move to a new city or you started a new job, even if you're not a founder, right, in a new job, new industry, like, do an industry meetup for your industry. And that's a great way to just meet people and welcome people in, right? So yeah, I totally agree.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Let's switch back to lessons learned. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Oh, so many. One of my favorites is, for me, normalizing rejection has been, my whole job as a founder has just been about getting rejected left and right. And for me, it was difficult, right? At the beginning, when I was a student, right, back then, when I was applying to internships, I remember I applied to my first internship, I got rejected instantly and I cried. And I remember, and then, I applied more and more, and 100 rejections later, and I got used to it. And then I realized that's just a part of the game. You have to get used to, if you're not getting rejected, you're not doing your job. You're not putting yourself out there. Same with as a founder. If I'm not getting rejected by customers every day, I'm not doing my job. I'm not selling my product enough. If I'm not getting rejected by investors, if I'm not getting rejected by, customers and whoever else, right? Like that's a part of my job description as a founder. And every founder should be doing that is, you should be doing sales. You should be, going and getting those rejections. And so, and of course, taking constructive criticism and feedback, of course, too. But that's all to be said is that, for me, I grew up in a culture where I think saving face and, having that acceptance was like a part of that culture. And so I was afraid of getting rejected. And I think now I've gotten used to like, hey, rejection is normal. It's okay. You're not the best fit for everyone. And that's okay. Maybe sometimes we are not the best data provider for everybody. And that's okay. Look, sometimes we don't have the right data coverage. Sometimes, we are not at the right stage for another company to use, and that's totally okay. There's lots of amazing reasons and that's totally fine. And so, we can totally understand that, we get rejected left and right. And that's the thing is like, but that doesn't prevent us from going out there more and continuing to sell and continuing to do our job. Right. And so I think that's one of the biggest lessons learned is like normalize rejection. When you get rejected from your job, put it on a mountain of rejections and move on. I think that's one of my biggest lessons I continue to teach over and over again is please, like in your job, whatever career you have, like get used to the rejections.
I think that's so important but I think also the education system has something to do with it because I used to teach at universities for a long time. And when you are a student, your role is actually to study and to do well in the exams. So if you study, you do well. But in life, that's not the way it works. You can study, you can get prepared. It might not be a good fit, or maybe you fail, but it's not within your control. Whereas when you're going through the whole educational system, it's pretty much under your control because if you put the effort, you pass. But in entrepreneurship, no, sometimes you put the effort and you don't pass, and that's just life. So, so I say you make money or you make learning. Sometimes you make both, but sometimes you don't. But that's really cool because I think a lot of people see you and see only your successes. And that's part of the reason why we bring this podcast, to see the real person behind. So we all have things that we need to work on, and it's not foolproof. Not foolproof. What would you tell somebody who is an investor? Because investors also have that. Investors also feel, maybe I'm not making the right decision, and I have a fund, and you get rejected all the time for the fund as well. Oh, you're too. And it's funny because, now they say I'm too old, but when I was young, I was too young. And then, it's like, okay, you never win. And, well, you're going to have kids. And then I had kids. Oh, you did have kids. And then it's like, okay, then you never win. But, so rejection. I love the way you put it. It's just part of life. But investors also have our own concerns. And I think the biggest one is to miss on a good opportunity. And the other one is to invest in a bad company. So is there anything, have you invested in companies?
I haven't. I only invest in, when I was running my hedge fund, we only invest in publicly traded companies, but not in privately held companies. So, I mean, of course, we've, publicly traded it, it's up and down, right? But I get what you mean.
So do you think what you have learned running the company would be useful to investors?
Ooh, interesting. I can get what you mean, right? Like sometimes, you feel like, maybe missing out on a really great opportunity, right? Or you make a bad call on a deal.
What was I thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, I'll always think like, hey, at the time, you made the best call based on what the data was showing you at the time. And that's okay, right? And a lot of times, if you think about it, most, like 90%, same with startups, 90% of startups fail, 90% of investors fail. And that's normal. I think same with us, like most of our, as a hedge fund, right? Most of like the things, so long as it's like, for us, we were thinking, okay, if we make like 1,000 trades a day, so long as over 50% of them are successful, then that we consider that like a success already, by the way. So that's how we think about it, is, and just try your best to view the glass as half full, not half empty. And also try not to judge your self-worth based on your performance at the end of the day. That was really important and difficult, by the way, very difficult for me to do early in my life, in my career. I think also because a little bit as a woman, like, it's just hard for me to separate my career from my self-worth. It's like, to me, it's like all the same. It's all like all intertwined and stuff. But it's really important for me to do that now, right? To be able to say, hey, I am not my career. I am not that, I can separate myself from that. And I have my family, I have my, like I mentioned, we talked about my mom, like that, there's so many people, I'm surrounded by people who love me and who, I'm just surrounded by so much goodness and so much love and so much just kindness and support, and that is so much more than just work, right? And so just remembering that is that, yes, of course, at work we all make mistakes. And so I think all of that combined helps me to have a good mentality at work as well, so that even on the bad days, which we all have, that it helps me to go through those bad days as well, and then that way, we can go through those bad days and turn them into good days.
Yeah, well, sometimes we have to have the light to have the light.
Yeah.
We have to have both. Yeah. So I want to wrap this with a question that I always ask. I don't know if you know this. I was in coma when I was 13. I fell off a horse and I ended up in coma, and I woke up 4 days later. And after that, I always thought, well, I was kind of a teenager, early teenager. That was not a good way to start teenagehood, by the way, but that was just the way. But I always think, so if I'm not here in time and space, who I am, what is the legacy? What do I want to build? And have you thought about that? Do you know what you want to be when you're not here in time and space?
Wow, that's a tough one.
I know, I don't give it away. I don't say that before, so people are not prepared.
Yeah. Part of me, it's interesting because I actually go back and forth on this a little bit. A part of me is almost like, Christina, leave no trace, and leave no trace being like, don't leave a negative environmental impact on this world. A lot of humans come and they just kind of leave this negative impact, and they're always in the history textbooks for like a negative reason and stuff. And I'm like, maybe I should sometimes the best human beings are the rest of us. It's the people who aren't in the history textbooks. It's the people like my mom, who are not going to ever be in a history textbook, who are going to leave no trace, and I'm like, I want to be more like my mom. I want to leave no trace, and so I kind of,
that's the introvert in there.
yeah, exactly. That's the introvert in me saying, I kind of want to be like that. And then of course I struggle because internally I'm like, yeah, I do want to make a difference in the world. And of course I'm on a trajectory where, if my company hopefully one day does do well, hopefully we'll make a difference, in the financial industry, in the data space, and, change the way that data is bought and sold, and make it, I hate to say democratize. I know it's such a term that's hard to, it's used by everyone, but truly, make data easier to buy and sell for everyone one day. And that would be really amazing. So, we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of what I wrestle with right now.
Great. Well, you are making a difference. I remember when I did the analysis of your company, and we took a long time to invest. And when I was doing the analysis, I said, there is a kid somewhere around the world that is curious about financial data and has absolutely no other way. And that is the problem that you're solving. So we don't know what impact you're going to have now. There's a lot of kids around the world that now have the opportunity to understand financial markets because you exist. And for me, that was, I think it's a good business, but it has a huge impact in the world. And that's one of the main reasons why I invested. That really drew me into understanding more, because that's an area that I usually don't invest. But I'm more into life sciences. But this was like, yeah, that is worth investing. I mean, it is life-changing. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. It means a lot.
How can we help? Do you have any last comment? How do people get in touch with you? How do people buy from you? Are you raising money again?
Oh no, but yeah, thank you so much. I think definitely.
We got it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all over the internet. So I'm fairly easy to find if you just Google my name, and yeah, feel free to add me or follow me anywhere. And yeah, looking forward to staying in touch.
So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Christina Qi. She is a very unusual entrepreneur. As she said, she's very introverted. When I first met her, she was fundraising very, very slowly. And she did close a company. She raised a company. She built a company, raised the money, and closed the company. And then she built this one, very data-driven. But she's the kind of entrepreneur that is soft and kind, and not the kind of entrepreneur that is bragging about all the things that they do. She's quietly getting her job done. I love Databento. I call it Databento because, of course, Spanish is my mother tongue. So data, not data. And maybe a little bit Australian. I'm here from Australia. I hope you enjoyed this. Please follow up in all the podcasts. And yours in Wealthy, Alicia Castillo, now from Australia. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to our Wealthy Talks. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. To stay connected, visit us at wealthing.com. This is Alicia Castillo Holley, your host, and until next time, yours in Wealthing.